I'll be one of the first to admit that anime in recent years has been, well, nothing to write home about. Even the shows that I've been hyped for seem to be plagued by issues with production, decisions to remove integral plot points, and a lack of understanding of what made the original work good. At first, I thought this was just as a result of me aging. Am I simply just too much of a boomer to enjoy anime? It wasn't until I watched an episode of the Trash Taste podcast that what I was feeling was put exactly into words.
The problem with anime nowadays is that, one, there is so much of it, and number two, a lot of it is what I just call disposable shows, where it's just not even like a show anymore, it's just content. It's just something you consume.
These shows, when I'm watching them, it just feels like the shows aren't trying to take from anything interesting. I kind of feel like I'm just losing my mind watching these shows where like no one even tries to do anything even remotely different.
Like it just feels derivative. Like you watch a show that is supposedly brand new, and I just read through the synopsis and I go, I feel like I've seen this show about 10 times.
Wait, I'm not alone in this. See, this feeling used to be relegated to shonen for me. And it's a big part of why I'm not generally into those types of shows. Predictable plots, overpowered main characters, and an absolutely inhumane amount of filler episodes. Now, I love a beach episode as much as the next person, but as I grow older, I have a hard time convincing myself to waste hundreds of hours on a show that seems to lack any lessons to take away from the story. Yes, girl, give us nothing. I don't know about you, but I miss turning on a show and being completely blindsided. I remember the days when I would start watching a show thinking it was just a fun slice of life, only to be kept on the edge of my seat, forced to ask and answer questions that were relevant to who I was as a person and who I would someday become. And as much as I enjoyed seeing some innovation in shows like Cyberpunk Edgerunners, not many shows in recent years have put me in the same headspace. You see, when I start to see memes and clips and everyone on the internet is obsessing with a particular show, I tend to give it a couple of months to watch.
It's the same price as back then.
Wouldn't inflation cause the price to change?
I remember when Himmel the Hero bought a hot dog here for the same price.
And for that reason, I haven't really been watching many seasonal anime. But this time, a show I assumed was just the flavor of the month made its way past Steins Gate, past Attack on Titan. Hell, it even passed Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. And it's probably been a while since you've seen FMA. So let me remind you, this show looks and sounds like this.
Let's watch some crazy stuff, yo! Hey, wait a minute, Rick. I thought this was a commercial. What's going on? I mean, don't worry about it. Let's just see where this goes.
Edward Elric get here?
Oh my God! It's still the commercial.
Drop your gun. What the hell?
Jeez, Rick. Oh my God. That's some pretty hardcore stuff. What in the hell?
I actually tried to introduce this show to someone who still hasn't seen it, and they literally laughed at how dated it was and then refused to watch it. Still, somehow, it was at #1 on my anime list for God knows how long. So I figured this show must have something a little bit more special than just gorgeous art or amazing music.
But amazing music it definitely does have. What initially caught my eye is that the music was done by Evan Call, who created the soundtrack for one of my favorite pieces of media of all time, Violet Evergarden. But it's not just the instrumentals that are amazing. I think all of the openings and endings deserve some attention. They're really good.
Not to mention, it's animated by Madhouse, who's created shows like Death Note, Death Parade, Death in One Punch, and Choppets. Keiichiro Saito was also the director of Bocchi the Rock and has done animation work on shows like Little Witch Academia, Oshinoko, and Wonder Egg Priority. Don't even get me started on the voice actors. Atsumi Tanizaki, the voice actress for Frieren, has voiced Anya from Spy X Family, Emporio from JoJo Stone Ocean, and, most importantly, Ayase from Kaijo. No, I will not elaborate. But if you don't care about any of these things, then I like you. You're not like other weebs. You're different. You're the odd ones out. Please don't click off. I still have the rest of the video to convince you. Without spoiling anything, Frieren's first episode had me thinking that the whole season was just going to be another trauma-filled show where we have to watch the main characters suffer episode after episode. And I really really thought the show was going to be about watching all of her friends and family die. I don't know about you, but I've been fucking tired of depressing media. I've had enough problems in the real world recently, and on an unrelated note, I feel like that's a big part of why so many people said the recent Hunger Games movie was a bad movie. I felt like the movie was insanely good, but it was dark. When the original movie came out, the concept of children fighting to death was something that was unthinkable for many viewers, but now death and destruction are all people see. But that's for another video. For this video, all you really have to take away is that this is not that kind of a story. It's not really easy to discern all the lessons that this show touches on either. Yeah, passage of time is a big one, and I'll touch on that later. But let me first tell you, this show is truly an iceberg, and the further you go down, the more you start to realize this really is a masterpiece. Will you find more success by rejecting your humanity? Can we ever truly leave a legacy? Is it too late to live your life? Are we born brave, or do the brave defy their own fears? Do we ever really lose the ones we love? And did we ever really have them to begin with? And I think at the end of it all, the one big question I'm left with is, why do we do the things that we do? Knowing how little time we have, knowing how little choice we have with the systems at play, can we really say that any of us have lived our lives to our full potential? Is it entitled to expect such great things from one lifetime? And if we can't live to our potential, what do we do with our time on this planet? Do we dedicate it to improving our skills, seeking power, seeking knowledge, pursuing love? Now, I'm going to have to rewatch this many times just to do a thorough deep dive, and it probably will be years before all of us fully understand each topic broached in this show. But one thing I can say for sure is that it's 100% worth watching. Hell, I'd recommend it even if you're just a degen who likes elf feet. Seriously, what's with the amount of feet shots in this show? Don't answer that. But if we're going to be talking about Frieren, by far the most prominent lesson to learn in this show is that we don't have unlimited time on this planet. It's something that a lot of us struggle to think about, our own mortality, but in worrying so much about the future and when we will run out of time, we often miss what's right in front of us. We often forget to remind those around us how much we care until it's too late. And not only that, but we spend so much time thinking about our own lives, what we're doing now, what we're doing next. It's not often that we consider how our paths might diverge from the people that we care about. And it's not often that we think about how much time they might have left. That's something that keeps me up at night, personally. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be a person. The passage of time is cruel, and the older I get, the more I have to face the reality that the world I lived in just 5 to 10 years ago is long gone. Like many students, I moved away from my family for college, and unlike many students, I never really had that profound moment where I broke into tears thinking about the home I left behind. At least not until I had already graduated. After 4 years, I came home, almost with the belief that things would be the same. But they weren't, and they never will be again. Open fields I used to play in with friends were now filled with shops and homes. I remember before I left, my father drove me to the house he grew up in. I was unimpressed. Sure, it was cool to see where he grew up, but I never really knew what it looked like before. He must have noticed too, because he started laughing, and then all he said was, "Soon. You'll understand soon. Things will keep changing, they never stay the same, and before you know it, you won't recognize a thing." And at the time, I didn't think much of it. Why would I care where new houses are built, or if my childhood home becomes a freaking CVS? I hated that home, and I hated that town. And yet, the day I left my first home, looking at every room completely emptied, I was scared. It was unsettling. I couldn't wait to get out until I was. And then I just stood there, looking at the open door and the empty hallways that held my formative years. Suddenly, I felt bad. The door swayed, almost beckoning me to come back in. It almost seemed lonely. But my dad was right. It was time to close that chapter of my life. I expected to do that. I knew one day I'd grow up, and I knew one day that I'd leave. But I guess in the bottom of my heart, I also thought I would come back. Life led me in another direction, and only recently have I faced the reality that the lives of those I left behind are still moving on too. Frieren is exactly about this. Even if you don't believe me, it's about how all of us are constantly changing and shifting directions in ways that we might not even expect. It's a reminder that life truly has no guarantees. I used to have these big family dinners, and I thought they would last forever. I thought one day I'd have my own kids, my own family, and then I'd be the one hosting them. But when my grandma passed, my family fell apart. And after a few years at school, I came home. There were no family dinners anymore. Not only that, but my aunt and uncle looked old. My parents, too. They were growing frail. We all expect our family members to grow old, but I don't think any of us really consider it until it happens. Frieren knows humanity is a fragile thing, and even so, she still neglects her most cherished friends. It's not because she doesn't care about them. She just doesn't really appreciate the sacrifices that they're making by just staying at her side. And rather than having her realize it all at once in the first episode, she slowly comes to admire the gestures Himmel made in his lifetime. I think this is much more realistic to how we all experience our lives. Time doesn't appear to move quickly for us because we're stuck in the motions. Work, school, sleep, food, chores, etc., etc. For me, it feels like the older I get, the faster each day passes. I hold less and less appreciation for the moments spent folding laundry or editing spreadsheets. It's almost like a month could go by and nothing of substance will happen. But then I see someone I grew up with and they're old. The kids I once knew are now sprouting gray hairs, some of them considering families, others facing diseases, homelessness, drug addiction. This wasn't the life I expected for any of them, and to be honest, it's not the life I expected for me either. And I think that's why Frieren struck a chord. Yes, she knows humans age faster. Logically, she knows. But emotionally, she never really had the space to comprehend what that means for the people around her. A quick trip for her is a lifetime for someone else. It's enough to be the difference between telling someone how she feels and missing the chance to show her appreciation. This story is about Frieren coming to terms with her past mistakes and making an effort to be more thoughtful with the second chance she's been given. In her life, she plays a lot of roles. To Fern, she's like a mother, and to Himmel, well, she would have been a lover, but to so many more people, she was a hero. And that's beautiful, but we don't get a second chance. We're only here once, some of us longer than others. So I hope that this story lets a lot of people look introspectively about the roles they want to play in their lifetime. How much time do we dedicate to our own personal growth? And how much of it do we sacrifice to improve the lives of those around us before it's too late? And although Frieren survives for a long time, the rest of us don't.
So let's make this life count.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider giving a Slothy smash that subscribe button. Thank you for watching. Bye!